Welcome back, everyone, to the fourth and final 40k Rant Starcraft versus Warcraft series. So this is going to be kind of a general thought video, more of just, instead of anything specific like I've done in the past videos of specific 3v3 and then one race versus the other, I have something a little bit special that I did put a very minute amount of research into. Again, these are not meant to be full-on lore videos. I might do full comparisons later. I actually had someone in my comments, give me 1 second. So I want to do a shout out. A Mr. Reno Tanks put in the comment section of my Protoss versus Eldar video, asking me to do 1v1 matches. This is something I did say I might consider in the future, and if I do, what I'll probably do is do lore 1 week and do a rant or maybe a 1v1 the next week, just to kind of take the ease off on the research. But if I do, that will come after I finish my Primarch series. Sorry, couldn't think of the words. So let's get into my general thoughts on StarCraft versus Warhammer 40k. I think I said Warcraft earlier. Oh well. Versus, let's get into the general thoughts, or my general thoughts at least, of StarCraft versus 40k, and how they genuinely stack up against each other. And to be fair, I think StarCraft does give 40k at least more of a run for its money than other science fiction universes. I would be very intrigued to do Star Wars due to some of the interesting fluff around some of their weapons, but I don't really see Star Trek handling up that well. Not even the Borg, to be fair. I don't see how the Borg could adapt to a bolter round. That wouldn't make sense to me. But I do think Klingons would have actually a fun time of 40k for, like, I don't know, 30 seconds, but they would have at least fun dying at most of the forces in 40k. But StarCraft does actually do a good job of holding its own overall. I do think overall that the Starcraft universe, which I'm going to comprise strictly to the Koprulu Sector, because that's where the entirety of Starcraft takes place. And granted, in Brood War, there is a force from Earth, but the fighting still takes place in the Koprulu Sector. So on this basis, I am going to assume that the majority to the sole amount of the Terran Dominion, the Zerg Broods, and the Protoss fleets are within the Koprulu Sector. And did a little bit of research on this just to make sure I get my numbers right. During the First War, the Brood War, and the Second Great War, there are about 100 to 150 planets in the Koprulu Sector, from what I could see from a quick glance. I couldn't really find any definitive numbers, but just looking through it, that's going to be the number I'm going to stick with, and this is giving a massive benefit of the doubt. Of that number, only about 40 are habitable. So now, I'm going to take that number, and I'm going to compare it to one main group in 40k, but I am going to add in 3 separate smaller groups, well, 2 separate smaller groups and 1 bigger group. And this is going to be the realm of Ultramar. And as much as I like to give the Ultramarine shit, they made this video easy. 500 planets. And of that 500 planets, there are 49 known successor chapters. Now, I'm going to give them the average bet of they're not at full strength, but I am going to give them the bet of, on average, being at 75% combat strength. And 75% of 49 known chapters, including the Ultramarine chapter itself, is 36,750. Now, if I really wanted to be the world's biggest douchebag, I could actually have Guilliman leading the charge here. If I put Guilliman in the mix, StarCraft has absolutely no hope. There's nothing that I've seen in StarCraft to be able to go up against a Primarch, short of named character bullshit mumbo jumbo. See, Kerrigan becoming a Selnaga. But in addition to the 36,750 combined amount of Astartes and Scout troops, you also have an unknown amount of Imperial Guard and Imperial Navy assets with them. I'm going to say there's going to be more, a lot more Imperial Guard and Imperial Navy than there is Astartes. If I really wanted to throw into the mix of named units, I could throw in Cadia, I could throw in Catachan Jungle Fighters, I could throw in Death Corps of Krieg. All of them would handle themselves relatively well. Or, Armageddon Steel Legion would be another good one that could all handle themselves very well in the Starcraft universe. And then let's also take into account, as much as I don't want to because I hate this faction, the Inquisition. So, you have the Inquisition. And when I say Inquisition, I don't just mean, some asshole Inquisitor, Inquisitor Lord. This could go, particularly Ordo Xenos, or even technically Ordo Hereticus, just because of them seeing Terrans as an offshoot of humans. They could see them as traitors. So you could make an argument for the Ordo Hereticus being there. And any inquisitorial detachment would, I'll put it this way. Inquisitorial detachments have given Astartes issues. And I think anything that can give any kind of Astartes issues would easily give Terran Dominion issues. Now, I understand this is also one faction. This is literally just the Ultramarines. Plus, well, this is really Imperium, I'll say. This is Ultramarines, Imperial Guard, Imperial Navy, and a detachment of Inquisition. And I think they would ruffle stomp the hell out of the Koprulu Sector. Now, that being said, that's one legion and its successors. That's not all loyal Astartes. That's not, all loyal Imperial Guard. I just threw out different names, but realistically, I could narrow it down. I could say Ultramarines plus Krieg plus a small Inquisition detachment would still ruffle stomp the hell out of the Koprulu Sector. But again, that is one legion and its successors, one Imperial Guard group, I guess you could call it. I don't really know what to call it, because it's not a regiment. It's like the entire Death Corps. So one entire Imperial Guard detachment, not unit. One entire Imperial Guard group, plus enough Imperial Navy ships to get them there. This would also include capital ships because you're going to need them. And again, I've already said my opinion on how a capital ship would do versus a battlecruiser, and it would be funny to watch that fight. So, now, let's also take a step back from Ultramarines. Let's say it's a Black Crusade. I love chaos. So, let's this will be something I know a little bit more about. But let's assume a Chaos Undivided Black Crusade decides to visit the Koprulu Sector. So you have Emperor's Children, you have Death Guard, you have the Black Legion, you have we have the World Eaters. If Abaddon can get them under control, you at least have some form of all of the Chaos Gods, favored sons, we'll call them. And now, to put this in a bit of perspective, Abaddon has been managed to get Karn to join in on some of the Black Crusades, and even Ahriman, and hell, even some of the Demon Primarchs. So, let's do a hypothetical of just saying Mortarion and Angron are the only really quote-unquote named characters he can get to join. Mortarion and Angron alone would probably fuck up the Koprulu Sector. And that's not even including the rest of the Black Crusade. They are exceptionally hard to put down, mostly because they are Demon Primarchs. But this is also assuming that the Warp would work the same way in the Koprulu Sector. that it would work in 40k. Now, on this note, let's talk about Psychers for a minute. If the rule of Psychers stays the same in 40k as it does in it would in the Koprulu Sector, Ghosts would be fucked. It would be funny. It would be funny for all of like 1 second before their souls get horribly devoured. Protoss would be screwed. The question I would have would be the psychic potential of the Zerg, which would be how would they fare against chaos? Because I mean, now realistically, I think a Black Crusade would again do essentially the same as the Ultramarines in their contingent and just ruffle stomp the hell out of the Koprulu Sector, including the Zerg. But the question comes down to how the psychics play into this. And then the one that I do find interesting would be the Tyranids. I think the only one that actually has a chance of being pushed back, well, actually, the two main ones that have a chance of being pushed back would be the Eldar and the Tyranids. The Tyranids, I don't think, would be able to compete with the Zerg. I've said this in the Tyranid versus Zerg video. Tit for tat, you know, without the evolutionary benefits, Tyranids are technically stronger than Zerg. And they are more versatile, but once you put in that evolutionary, once you put in the evolutionary speed and traits, the Zerg just completely outperform the Tyranids. And so I think not even be able to get past the Zerg. Tyranids could probably tear out Terran, maybe Protoss, but they're going to be stopped by the Zerg, so... And then you have the Eldar, who I think would put up an amazing fight against the Protoss, but I think they would ultimately get pushed back. That's one faction. If you have a galactic event like the Eldar coming to attack, and the same thing happens similar to Amon in the second game, where you have all three factions banding together, then yeah, the Eldar are going to be screwed. I mean, they were pushed back barely by the Protoss, in my opinion. And once you throw in the Zerg and the Terrans, I just don't see them being able to pull anything off of any significant value. Dark Eldar would be interesting. That would be more of hit and run. I think at most they would be a nuisance and an irritant. They would do a lot of damage, but I don't think their overall game is really domination of the sector, so I don't think they would. I mean, granted, they would stay in the sector so they could keep capturing, you know, for their needs and desires, but I don't think they would necessarily take over the entire sector. Necrons, they ruffle stomped me, so I'm gonna say they would ruffle stomp Koprulu Sector. Necrons are really one that I don't know that much about, so what I do know about them, I can see it, but this is one that I question very heavily. Tau, I don't see doing that well. So really it comes down to Imperium and Chaos just completely decimating Koprulu. Tyranids wouldn't be able to. Eldar wouldn't be able to. Dark Eldar wouldn't want to. Necron questionably would. Tau wouldn't. I'm trying to think of any other races. I can't think of any. Orcs would have a fun time in the Koprulu Sector. I'm actually kind of ashamed that I forgot about the Orcs. Orcs would have a hilarious time with the Koprulu Sector. They would be so used to fighting the Stardays. Find a Terran Marine, be like, Ume! It's a Spice Marine! And then they would pick him up and rip his arms off, be like, this ain't no Spice Marine! It's a Yume! And that would be when they find out they would not have as much fun as normal, but they would still have fun. Just, I think they would probably do the most damage the quickest to the Koprulu Sector. Only because the Orcs are the Orcs, and they are very, very special. So, really quick wind down. Orcs, Chaos, Imperium would all win. Essentially, Necrons are the one that's up in the air because I don't know that much about them. Eldar, Tyranids, Tau wouldn't be able to do anything. Dark Eldar, I honestly don't believe would. They would just sit there and hide in the shadows and just take what they needed. So, now, that all being said, again, I think StarCraft was a good matchup. And normally, Universe v Universe doesn't work out that well, but StarCraft, I believe, was a good matchup for 40k. They were relatively even in some cases, and even, hell, surpassed my expectations in others. So, I think StarCraft v Warcraft versus 40k is a really good matchup, and I would be interested to see what other matchups that y'all would like to see, or if y'all would like to see some 1v1s like Mr. Reno Tank in the comments, be it StarCraft v 40k, or, Warcraft versus Warhammer Fantasy. I would have to do a little bit more research for those, but I wouldn't mind doing videos on that if that's what y'all would like to see. But if you like this video, subscribe. Check out all my playlists. Check out my StarCraft versus 40k playlist under my 40k Rants. Leave a like and a comment, or leave a dislike if you don't like what I've said. Let me know. I'm always reasonable to hear out what people have to say in the comments. That being said, the best way to suggest things that you want to see is in the Discord. So join the Discord, and whenever I complete a video game, I always put a poll up in the Discord for the community to help me pick the next game. Now, doesn't mean I'll always pick number one, except for the community pick. Community pick, I will always pick what the community wants. Sometimes against my will. But for other games, I will throw it out there and at least see what the community wants and make a judgment based on that. It doesn't always mean it'll be number one, but if it's one that is at least in top three and one that I like, that's more than likely going to be the one that I'll pick. So if you want to have a say in what series I do next, or what games I do next, I should say, join the Discord and hit up those polls. Wow, it sounded really wrong now that I think about it. But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed, and most importantly, I hope you all have a very wonderful day.